thought I was going to say. Now this is going to completely.
Okay, welcome everybody. And this is Nefesh B'Nefesh's United broadcast, and we're honored to have Ambassador Michael Oren with us. Ambassador Oren is a statesman, historian, soldier, an author, and probably one of the longest and most distinguished careers of any Oleh in Israel, probably short of Golda Meir. So we're immensely honored to have him. Dr. Oren, Ambassador Oren, was born in New York, educated at Princeton and Columbia, visiting professor at Harvard, Yale, and Georgetown. He moved to Israel in the 1970s and joined the IDF. As an 18-year-old, he was a lone soldier and a paratrooper and fought in the Lebanon War. In 2009, Ambassador Oren was appointed Israel's ambassador to the United States, where he served with distinction at a very tough time for Israel. He returned to Israel and was elected to Israel's Knesset, where he headed a committee on classified information and served as deputy minister in the prime minister's office in charge of diplomacy. Ambassador Oren is probably best known for his books on the Six-Day War, on power, faith, and fantasy, on the U.S.-Israel relationship and the history of it, and on Ally, among many, many other books, including novels, and most recently 2048, which I am currently enjoying. But his greatest accomplishment is that he is the father of 3 and the grandfather of 6. And without further ado, Ambassador Oren, please, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Oren. Thank you for mentioning my greatest accomplishment, because that is truly my greatest accomplishment. I have 6 Israeli grandchildren. You should all know that thrill of having Hebrew-speaking grandchildren who grow up as free citizens, as free Jews in their homeland. There really is no greater joy than that. So I come to you tonight, friends, with a great sense of honor, but also of heaviness and grief, as Israel faces its most perilous moment, more so than certainly the eve of the 67 war, more so than the first day of the Yom Kippur War. I don't think we've had a moment like this since May 14th, 1948, when hours after Ben Gurion declared the reborn Jewish state, we were attacked by 6 Arab armies. And these are Arab armies that didn't necessarily attack our armies, but they attacked our farms, our cities, our towns, our fields. Tel Aviv, I'm speaking to you from Tel Aviv. People often forget that right after Ben Gurion made that announcement, he went into a bomb shelter because Tel Aviv was strafed by Egyptian fighter aircraft right after. And we lost 1% of our population in that war. 6,000 people out of 600,000. The most perilous moment. It's a moment which I and somebody like me didn't think we were going to encounter, certainly not in this way. I'm not a prophet, but I have been talking about the possibility of an outbreak of war for a very long time. I've written about it in the press, and I'm not alone in predicting that. The feeling was that Iran and its proxies would make a move to try to break out, create nuclear weapons, try to surround us, try to unnerve us and deter us. We did not predict that Hamas would defy all expectations, break through our fence, attack 22 communities at the same time, that our army wouldn't function as it should, our security didn't function as good, our intelligence services didn't function as they should. And as a result, to date, at least 1,400 Israelis have been murdered, butchered, burnt, mutilated, raped, beaten, and taken hostage. That is a unacceptable and unbearable reality for Israel. And not to sound too Churchillian, but this is not the end. It's not the beginning. It's not even the end of the beginning. We're not there. This war has actually not started yet in full. And we are facing increasing criticism from the world community. You saw the way the world embraced the Hamas narrative of the hospital bombing last night and completely ignored for a very long time our version of events, which were based actually on facts and not on propaganda. And we faced the possibility of an opening of a second front in the north with Hezbollah, which has a missile arsenal which is roughly 15 times larger than that of Hamas, longer range and more accurate. This is a moment in history. This is a moment in history. And we We who came from different societies in the English-speaking world in the United States, who may have left leafy suburbs, who may have left comfortable environs, we may be asking ourselves and maybe looking at our children thinking, did we make the right decision? Did we make the right decision? My own children used to always say to me, Abba, the greatest decision you ever made was raising us in the state of Israel. And I would be amiss in not being candid with you and saying that my children too are going through great questions in their minds, night after night with their children in bomb shelters. You're in my memad here, in my home. Don't ignore the books behind me. This is a memad. It is a very difficult question. We have to face it straight on. And it's this. The answer is this. In moving here, we made a decision. We made a decision to return to Jewish history. We knew that history is hard and that Jewish history is harder still. We didn't come here to be more comfortable. We didn't come here for an easier life. And indeed, historically, those of us who came from North America, one of the few waves of immigrants to this country of Olim who actually traded in a cozier form of life for more challenging existence here in the state of Israel. We knew that we and our children and our children's children would have to wear uniforms and could be put in harm's way. As Oren mentioned, I've served in wars. My children have served in wars. We have lost a close family member to terrorist attacks. This is our life in the land of Israel. And yet, I have two perspectives on this. One is a purely personal perspective. And the personal perspective is this. Na hayiti gam zakanti, right? You see the gray hair. I first came here when I was 15 years old in 1970. You can do the math. And what did this country look like when I moved here in the 70s? It was a country that was basically lower middle class. Our major export item was orange juice. We had no relations with China, no relations with India. They were both hostile countries. That's half of humanity right there. A very hostile relationship with what was known as the Soviet bloc countries. That was Russia with 12 satellite nations. 3 million Jews were prisoners behind that Iron Curtain. Jews were not free. Jews weren't free in Ethiopia either. We had no relations with Africa. Africa had, after the 1974 oil embargo, all the African countries cut off relations with us. Very few relationship with Latin America, South America, no peace with Egypt, no peace with Jordan, certainly not with the Abraham Accord countries. And with the United States, we had a friendly relationship. We did not have a strategic alliance with the United States. And so in my lifetime, and historically speaking, not that long, look at those transformations. Look at our relationships with India, or some of our closest relations in the world, with China. With the former Soviet bloc countries are some of our best friends in Europe. With Africa, as the deputy minister for diplomacy, every week I hosted a different African leader who just wanted to renew relations with us and get as close as possible to the state of Israel. Same thing with South America, Latin America, peace with Egypt, peace with Jordan. And I was privileged to be able to be part of many of those processes. Peace with the Abraham Accord countries, the 4 countries, and now possibly still peace with Saudi Arabia, the most prestigious country in the Arab world, which will mean peace not just with Saudi Arabia, but peace with the Sunni world, Malaysia, Indonesia, Kuwait, Oman, and others. A complete sea change. And with the United States of Israel, not only do we have a strategic alliance, we have, and I say this without reservation, the deepest and most multifaceted strategic alliance which the United States has had with any country in the post-World War II period. And we saw evidence of that today. Where else would the President of the United States get on an airplane and fly to an active war zone to come here and give us a hug? When else, at the height of isolationism in the United States, where the only thing that Republicans and Democrats agree on is not to get involved in further military entanglements in the world, and especially not in the Middle East, where else, and to whom else, would the United States send its 2 most modern and powerful aircraft carriers surrounded by a flotilla of warships to protect its ally, the state of Israel. And I saw this up close. Even with an administration that was sometimes very tough on us, I saw it up close in Washington every single day, every day. That's extraordinary. Today, every Jew in the world is free. We couldn't take that for granted when we were much younger. 1 million Jews in the former Soviet bloc making Aliyah over a 10-year period to be the equivalent of the United States absorbing all the population of France. Over 100,000 Jews airlifted from Ethiopia. Unthinkable. If someone had told me that this would be Israel-like in 40, 50 years back when I moved here, I would say you're probably insane. It's impossible. It could not be. So in my lifetime, I have witnessed miracle after miracle here. Has it been easy? No. There have been wars. There have been 2 intifadas. And now this. It hasn't been easy, but that cannot detract from any way, from the miracle. And having that historical perspective and remembering what this country was like on May 14th, 1948, with that 600,000 Jews, that's the population of Boston, by the way, and no allies, no resources, and surrounded by these Arab armies. And we created this, a country which is by any international standard is one of the most successful countries in the world, whether it be in health, in education, in infrastructure, in energy, in every field. Now that cannot be taken for granted. It can't be taken for granted that the water that comes out of your faucet is better than anything you get in the bottle. That cannot be taken for granted. You can count on 2 hands the amount of countries in the world where that's possible. And you can count on one hand the countries that have never known a second of non-democratic governance. United States, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, that have never known a second of non-democratic governance. We're on that list. We're the only country on that list that's never known a second of peace. And even now, we know no peace. So that's one perspective. It's an historical and personal perspective. And even in the darkest days here, and these are dark days, it gives me great hope because I know we have encountered seemingly insurmountable obstacles over and over again, and we have emerged, if not victorious, certainly stronger and more committed to our vision. Second hat is very personal and very spiritual. I deeply believe and act upon that belief that we're here for a purpose, that we have survived for 4,000 years for a purpose, that we've come home for a purpose, and that we as Jews living in this year are inestimably privileged to live at a time where there is a sovereign Jewish state in our homeland, the land of Israel, and that we have the privilege to defend it. We have the privilege to mourn those who have fallen in its defense, because I can speak for my grandparents and my great-grandparents who hid in the cellars from the pogroms. At the end of the day, we still have that ability to defend ourselves. We have the ability to determine our fate and to fashion our destiny. And it is a common destiny. I know that many of us out there have different views from me, different views from one another politically. And if there's one ironic and tragic silver lining to this war, is that it has brought us together. Hamas had to remind us that we are one state, one people, that we are a family. And look how the civil society has come together with tens of thousands of volunteers rising up to help and bring food and bring clothing to soldiers and to evacuated families and families of those who have fallen and families of those who have been taken captive. It shows the deep and inestimable strength and spirit of Israeli society. You are part of that. You represent that. You're the flagships. You are. I hope you can remember all of this. I hope you can remember an historical perspective. I hope you can dig deep into your spiritual roots and consciousness and appreciate even this moment, even this dark moment. Our commitment, our spirit, our faith will be tested in the coming days as Israel is poised to enter with a great force into Gaza to uproot Hamas, to extirpate Hamas, to liberate, we hope, our hostages, and perhaps take on enemies elsewhere in the north, perhaps in Judea and Samaria, perhaps even in Israeli cities. We cannot overlook this possibility. But I tell you, as someone who has lived here for a very long time and seen a lot, as someone who knows our history so well, and as someone who has that faith and spirit, we will come through it. And we'll come through it stronger. We'll come through it more united. And we'll come through it in a way that you will be able to look, your children will be able to look at you as my children looked at me and said, Abba, Ima, the best decision you ever made was raising us here. I'd come. Chazak ve'matz. Chazak ve'matz to each and every one of us.
Dr. Oren, thank you, Ambassador, for words of inspiration that are touching to each of us and will really give us tremendous strength in the days and the weeks that we're going to need them going forward. And we really appreciate, how limited your time is. We really appreciate the time that you've spent with us. Thank you so very much.
Well, thank you all. It's all an immense zchut, and that I feel before you. For those of you who have, I know all of us out there have known people who have fallen in this battle. I know some of you are in mourning now. Many of you have daughters and sons who are in the service, or husbands, or even wives in the service right now. I wish all of them to come home safely to us. That is my fervent wish. And, I used to be able to say that I used to speak in the name of the state of Israel, the people of the state of Israel. I can't do that anymore, but, to heck with it. In the name of the people and state of Israel, toda rabba mikerav lev.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Ken.